Hi, I'm Jim, a competitive Splatoon player and also a former English teacher. If you're watching this, it might be because someone sent you a video of Splatoon gameplay to watch and you were just like, what am I looking at right now? It's a game with a pretty difficult learning curve, and a big part of that learning curve is learning what you're seeing and what you're looking for on screen. People who play the game tend to figure those kinds of things out while they're still familiarizing themselves with the controls, but if you haven't played it before, it might feel a little overwhelming. That's why I'm putting together this guide that I'm hoping will help you watch Splatoon without needing to play a bunch of it first. We'll start with the most basic elements of the game and work our way up to talking about some basic competitive strategy, in case you're being shown something like tournament footage. It's a deep and complex competitive game, so I'm not going to be making you an expert analyst with these videos, but I hope it will at least make it more enjoyable to watch by the time we're done. To start with, Splatoon 3, which is the latest release in the Splatoon franchise of video games, is played on a Nintendo Switch console, so it's not available on an Xbox, a PlayStation, a computer, or smaller handheld styles of console. It's a game that's played online against other players on their own Switch consoles, though for someone with a lot of space, a lot of electrical outlets, and a good knowledge of networking, you can also set it up so that two teams can play each other in person using what's called a LAN, an acronym for Local Area Network. The word LAN has also come to be used to refer to in-person tournaments, more accurately labeled LAN events. Competitions where all of the matches are played using a local area network by players physically sitting next to each other at the same tables. Most players play solo, or what's called solo queue, where they don't expect to know any of the people they're playing against, and they're just receiving random teammates from the game's matchmaking system. But if you know people who play, you can add them as an in-game friend and play matches with them. And people will also form steady teams to play with. In coordinated competitive play, players will set up voice calls with their teammates, typically using an app called Discord, to coordinate with each other and call out game plans and enemy positions on the fly. At LAN events, players will have audio setups that allow the same communication with their teammates in a way that hopefully also prevents them from hearing their opponent's calls, even though they're often just sitting across the table from each other. If you're interested in the competitive formats of events like these, I have a separate video explaining how they work in esports in general, and a link to that should be showing up in the upper right corner of this video right about now. Let's run through some basic concepts of the game here in the lobby, where it's a little bit more calm, and we can isolate aspects of the game without all the chaos of a match happening around us. This is the player character, which is an Inkling, a fictional species. We'll be seeing the back of Inklings' heads a lot. Inklings are shapeshifters that can go from walking around as a kid to swimming around as a squid at the press of a button. There's another kind of player character called an octoling, which is exactly the same in-game, but turns into an octopus instead of a squid. So if you see that word, just know that for in-game purposes, it's the same thing. It's your player character, just it looks a little different and has some different cosmetic options. The kid form allows you to fire an ink-based weapon, something like a squirt gun, or a paintbrush, or a ink-loaded sniper rifle, or a gas-powered minigun. There's a lot of weapon variety. Regardless of which weapon you choose, it puts squid ink on the ground. That ink will be the color of the team you're playing. So, in this example, I'm on orange team, and my opponents would have an ink color that sharply contrasts this color. The squid form doesn't do an awful lot for me on unpainted ground. It makes me a little lower profile, so maybe I can hide sometimes, but the real advantage of it is that if I'm on ink that's my color, I can swim through it. And swimming is the fastest way to move across the ground in the game. Another advantage of swimming in your ink is that it's the reload mechanic. Your ink weapon doesn't have infinite ammunition. It's going to run dry if you shoot it too much. And while it gains a small amount of ink over time, it's much faster and more practical to swim in your ink to fill it back up. One last advantage of swimming through the ink is that you're a lot harder to see when you're down inside it. Sometimes you're all but invisible. If someone's going to try and set up an ambush on an opposing player, it's usually going to involve dropping down into their ink in squid form, so they're a lot less likely to be spotted before they pounce. Combining these two forms, players are going to alternate between standing up into kid form and painting the map, and then dropping into squid form to swim through the ink they put down to reach new areas of the map quickly, and stand up to paint those next. The paint can also be used to climb up the side of walls, allowing players to move vertically instead of just horizontally. Games of Splatoon are played on teams of 4 in a variety of different locations called maps or stages. In competitive matches, there are 5 possible modes, that is, 5 different sets of objectives and win conditions, all of which can be played on every map in the game. On this map, Inkblot Art Academy, I can set it to have the Rainmaker game mode, in which case you'll be able to pick up this big golden fish and move it around. But if I set it to tower control instead, now it'll have this tower in the middle that starts moving when I stand on it. Same map, for the most part, just different objectives to play on, and maybe some differences in the way the map is laid out to accommodate for those differences in the game mode. As you can see, the maps are symmetrical. You start from an area called spawn, a common term in video games that just refers to the spot your player character starts from. This area will be at the far end of the map from the mirrored enemy spawn, where your opponents start from. The objective you're playing for will be in the middle of the map. And so the game will usually start with teams starting on their sides and moving, kid form, shoot the ground, drop into squid form, swim to the end of the ink you put down, stand back up to shoot more ink, into the middle of the map, where they'll meet the enemy team. The weapons you have aren't called weapons for nothing. When you encounter an enemy player, they aren't going to want to just let you play the objective and score points without a fight. Every weapon deals a different amount of damage in a different way. But Inklings can only take a few shots before they're going to get splatted, which removes them from play for around 10 seconds before they rejoin play from back in the team's spawn area. This is the most consistent way to make it safe to play the objective, because with all the opponents out of the way, there's no one to stop you. They won't stay out of the way for long, though, so there's a lot of push and pull in Splatoon. One team will win a fight and be able to score for a short time, but pretty soon they'll have to fight again to be able to keep scoring, and if they get pushed back or get splatted themselves, now it's the other team's turn. Every weapon is really 3 different weapons packaged into one. The main weapon, the primary method that you'll use to paint the ground, also comes with a sub-weapon. Something that the character throws. Maybe a bomb, maybe a defensive wall that blocks shots, maybe a locator device that marks enemy positions. Just like the main weapons, there's a lot of variety here. Sub-weapons use up a very significant amount of the ink tank, so you can't throw many of them very quickly, but they can help a lot with shoring up a main weapon's weaknesses sometimes. Every weapon also comes packaged with what's called a special weapon, or just special for short. The special weapon is a more powerful option that can't just be used whenever you want. You're able to use the special weapon one time after you've painted the map a certain amount. That means that aside from just where you aim the weapon or how you use it, when you use the special is also an important decision, because you're not going to get it again for a little while once it's out there. Some special weapons nuke some large area of the map, making it inaccessible to the enemy team. Some target enemy players, forcing them to move around and dodge things while you're also trying to shoot at them. Some special weapons make you and your teammates temporarily stronger, or prevent them from taking damage. But whatever they do, they can create a huge advantage, and a lot of the tactics at a high level revolve around when to use these specials, in what combinations to use them, and how to mitigate the impact of opponents' specials used against them. We'll get into more of that as the series goes on, but in the next video, we'll start by talking about the rules of the different game modes, so when you start watching a game, you already know the answer to the eternal question. Are you winning? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.